Okay. Greetings, greetings. It is Lockdown Online with Ninja X, day 6 of the lockdown, and I am honored to be in conversation with Baba Buntu. Baba Buntu is an activist scholar and founding director of Ebukhosini Solutions, which is a community-based company specializing in African-centered education. Baba Buntu, thank you so much for taking time to chat to me here on Lockdown Online with Ninja X.
Siyabonga, Ninja X. Thank you so much for setting up this platform and keep the conversation going at a time when many of us don't even know what to say.
All right, so maybe for someone who's not so familiar with your work, African-centered education, if you can maybe just break it down, what it means. I know you're on a mission, as you say, to for complete liberation of all African minds, people, families, and nations. So if you can just allow us, or maybe those of us who are not too familiar with your work, what it really entails when you say African-centered education.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ninja X. So the way we look at the world is that all information is culturally loaded or anchored. So when we sometimes get to think of knowledge as neutral or belonging to everyone or universal, that's a lie. All knowledge comes from somewhere. It comes from a people's experience. It comes from certain perspectives. It comes with certain choices of how one wants to see the world. So we believe that as African people, we need to see the world through our eyes first. And because so much has been taken away from us, that is something that normally doesn't come natural to us anymore, because we have been educated through institutions that positions Africa completely at the back. It's almost not even visible. So when we want to center our knowledge and practices and solutions in Africa, we need to work hard to keep that focus. And that means we need to be selective about what we read. We need to be, even if we talk about mathematics, even a car repair, even like anything that you can think of, there is an African approach that you could apply and draw knowledge from to sustain your argument, your worldview. And then, of course, the point is not just to sit and argue. The point is to find a better practice. So it's African-centered education for the sake of African-centered practice. And that means parentage. It means your job. It means what you do as a business person. It means what you do as a woman, as a man, as a parent. It affects all aspects of life.
It's Lockdown Online with Ninja X. I am in conversation with Baba Buntu. Thank you so much, Baba Buntu, for your time. So let's get into it. The actual conversation right now, we're on lockdown, not just in South Africa. Let's look at what's happening in the continent. I'm more interested in the continent, more particularly in this conversation. Of course, we are going to draw from what's happening in South Africa at the moment. So I read on your commentary on social media that you're saying that there's many sides to this pandemic and many angles to uncover and clarify. And I think there's a lot of confusion at this time. For one, most of us have never been in this situation, in this democracy in South Africa, and we are literally asking what is going on, what is happening now, what does it mean now, what does it mean going forward? So maybe speak to me about some of the things you speak of when you say that there are many uncovered angles and sides that we need to clarify. I mean, there's a lot that's happening in South Africa at the moment. There's a lot that emotions are high. People are wondering what's happening with the lockdown. We know we only on day 6, but people are wondering what people are going to eat. There's a lot of worry. So maybe let's look at this currently. What does this lockdown mean at the moment? We are on day 6. There's nothing we can show about that fact, but all the other factors that are making us worry.
Right. I think there's at least 2 perspectives that I think we need to find solutions to. One is to really understand what this is. And I think if we remember very well, and I think I want to make this point very clear, and the point is that we need to understand that we are a people who have been lied to a lot. For every challenge that we have had over the last couple of 100 years, there's always been an element of coercion or keeping certain information away from us, and the intention of disempowering us. So I'm saying this to people who say, are you going to come with issues around race again? Are you going to come with issues now against white people again? Come on, it doesn't apply to this situation. It applies to every situation. So my point is not to be hysterical. My point is not to buy into every other theory that kind of takes it out of proportion. But we know that normally we are not fed all the information and we only see that some years later. So I want us to remember that and I think it's an invitation to think critically. So obviously, knowing as little as we do at the moment, we need to listen to the advice that has been given. We need to take precautions. We can't just laugh it off. I don't think we can afford to do that. And we're standing at a case rate in Africa of about coming up to 4,000 soon of cases and about 100 deaths. And even if that is not as huge proportionately to other parts in the world, I think we need to at least take our precautions and we need to have sound conversations. What does this mean? What is it? Where does it come from? What does it mean when world so-called leaders are telling us that Africa is going to be so affected by this? Like they say 60% of people are going to die. Like there's a whole lot of assumptions that are being placed on us. And psychologically, if you are being told that it's a very slim chance that you're going to survive, it does something to you in your soul. It does something to how you look at life. You could either just block it and say, you know what, I don't care. I'm sick and tired of being told who I am, what is happening. I don't care. I'm going to do whatever. And that is a response. But the other response is also to say, what is this? Is this a mind play? Is this an exaggeration? Is this to demotivate us? What is this about? So I think that's a process we need to continue to have conversations. And those of us who have access to social media, and thank you for the platform you have set up, helps us to have the conversation and grow in knowledge as we go. And now, I don't want to hear from China. I don't want to hear from Britain. I don't want to hear from Russia. I want to hear from other African experts, indigenous practitioners, those who work within virology. And I'm not a virologist, so I'm not going to put myself out there and say, you see what is happening now is 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't make a lot of sense in this space, but I know enough to understand that you need to think on several levels at the same time. And I think the other thing is we also need to think about what do we do now in our houses, in our places, in our shacks, in the places we are stowed away. And also remember that maybe some of us have access to some form of comfort and we are relatively safe and we can put something to eat and we can sleep relatively safely. But a huge chunk of our people cannot do that. It's a huge luxury to even do that. And I think now, yes, we need to have expectations to our governments, of course, but our governments have failed us repeatedly across this continent. So I don't think we can say that our plan is just to wait for government to solve this for us or take care of this. Government is obviously doing something, but it's far from enough. And I think now, if we really think, I mean, we used to talk before this, we used to talk highly about Ubuntu and collective work and how we stand together as a nation. And yes, it's challenging when we are all kind of locked up in individual spaces. But if that really means something to us, this is the time to practice it. This is the time to reach out. This is the time to see if you have a little bit extra, where can you lend a hand to make sure that we as Africans also take care of each other.
Lockdown Online with Ninja X. I am in conversation with Baba Buntu. We are talking the lockdown. We are talking how we can survive this. We are talking possibly how the future may look for South Africans and, of course, the rest of Africa. Baba Buntu, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, this is not the first time that we go through such adversity. If things like this happen now in 2020, I mean, centuries ago, what was happening? I mean, on what scale? So maybe share with us some of the practices that we can take on to make sure we have a sense of peace, of calming. We are with family at the moment, and those of us who are lucky to be with family, we are grateful for the time. Unfortunately, not all of us can be with family at this time. So what can we do maybe on a spiritual level, on any level, African mythology wise, that we can sort of like connect and make sure that we send off some vibes that can make us live and sustain.
Sure. No, thank you so much, Ninja X. And I think, I know that my first advice may sound a bit ridiculous to some because it's a long-term suggestion. We need to remember our story. And I know some people will just blow that off and say how is that going to create a solution for a viral disease? The point is, we need to remember that as a continent, we have been attacked many times. We have been invaded, we have been enslaved, we have been colonized, we have had apartheid rules governing our daily lives. But for the longest time, we have always had a very strong faith, not even it's been a knowledge. We have known that we're going to get through this. We're going to rise again. There's going to be a day after this. We have always known that. It's not even something we contemplate or maybe. It's been a firmly anchored knowledge. This is probably the first time in African history, if you think of the last 50 to 100 to 150 years, that we are really doubting the future collectively. Because many of us are wondering, is there really a future for Africa? Even before Corona. Is there a future for Africa? Can Africa stand on its own? Can we even govern our country, our space? Can we get our land back? Can we even think of a thriving African economy? What would that even look like if we are going to be the masters of it? So we doubt that. And now when this comes, when we again are pushed even a step backwards again, when we feel like now we can't do anything, we have to take instructions. If China now comes and says, here's the remedy, we feel we're just going to say, okay, thank you very much. Please give us a lot. Like, instead of saying, hey, wait, we're not sure if we want your cure. We have our own. We are busy working with our medical practitioners. We are busy working with our knowledge. So my point is, remembering our story means that we stand on a solid ground. We gain confidence. We face a world that wants to intimidate us with a sense of power and saying, we got this, we can get out of this. We have a long history of having made it before. Corona is not even going to face us. We can get through this. But that means we need to find ways to rework our collective strategies, because and this is something that I'm standing very clear on, that I understand that there's a role that we should expect from government, and especially in crisis like this, government has to play a part, and we shouldn't back down on having expectations and requests. But at the same time, government in Africa has never really produced a sense of strong faith within us to see that they really are working for us, they really have our interests at heart, we can really rely on them. So we need to do something more than that. And I think now is the time when we collectively have conversations, and some of us can do it through social media, some of us have to find other ways of communicating. I know it's not an easy approach, but it's possible. We need to have a conversation about who do we now trust. We just lost an icon within the African spiritual world, Sanusi Usamzulu Credo Mutua. And my understanding of his passing is this. Because I see people writing all over, oh, it's so sad. Oh, we've lost a library of knowledge. What are we going to do now? Everything is flat. I don't think we even have the right to approach it that way. Credo Mutua has done his part and more. So if his legacy is meaningful, we will pick it up right now from where we are. He came into this physical world doing things that nobody even understood at the time. So we need to do the similar thing now. We need to allow ourselves to be crazy, to be misinterpreted, to be doubted, because, you know, we have lost our minds, most of us as African people. So my point is just to say, it's almost like Baba Credo is also saying, you know what, I think this is my time to leave you. I tried to give you all the knowledge that I had. Now it's time for you to show me, or show the world, if it really was worthwhile. And if his legacy was really worth something, it will be shown now over the next couple of months and years. So I think one of the things that we can do, and when I speak about spirituality, I want to say something about it, because I know many people, when they think of spirituality, especially African spirituality, they just think of nonsensical things like putting some stones and some rocks and things that are just, that you do mostly for when you want to put a spell on your neighbor, or because your lover left you, now you want this person back. Like, they think about it in very nonsensical terms. We need to remember African spirituality as a power, not magic, not doing dark mystic things, but power, facing the impossible, facing the hardest form of oppression and still stand rock solid because we got it. We know we come from somewhere great. And that and the practice of that would mean different things to different people. I've always said this, that we need to continuously upgrade our cultural expressions. We often think of our culture as something we need to go back to do. So we perform dances of the virgins like they did 100 years ago. Maybe now we need dances for gender-based violence. We need dances for the broken family. We need dances for African men who no longer have a sense of self. We need dances for the economy that we need to create. We need dances for the land that was stolen from us. We need to. So my point is not to say we should just dance and dance and dance. I'm using it as an example to say we used to know dances of power. We used to know cultural expressions that actually mattered and changed things, not just a nostalgic look back into our catalog of what we used to do before. So the thing is, we need to insist that our culture is our strength or part of our strength, because culture and spirituality also involves a science, critical thinking, political decisions. It's not just something we do in this mystic space. So my point is, we cannot take, this is the time we really need to decide that spirituality is going to be part of the plan to survive this, to go through this, but also to get on the other side of this. We mustn't think of life after Corona as going back to normal. We don't want normal. We are sick and tired of normal. Normal killed us. Normal marginalized us. Normal confused us. We don't want normal. We want something we haven't seen. And I think as much as obviously this lockdown affects a lot of people and even further marginalizes many people of our community, some of us need to really step up now and start to think about what is the life we really want after this. And I think we have a very, very important opportunity to start shaping it.
Lockdown online with Ninja X. I am in conversation with Baba Buntu. We are talking the lockdown. We are talking what it means. We are talking how we can deal with it, more importantly, and we're talking spirituality. Baba Buntu, we spoke also about many causes of infections, health complications, and deaths around, which are affecting millions of people on our continent. And then this is before Corona now. And now we are looking at the future. I mean, this is obviously going to hit everyone hard. It is already hitting us hard going forward, when we've already got a pile of our own, those problems that we were facing, coupled with this. And then what kind of infections, health complications were you speaking of for someone who really doesn't understand what you're talking about health-wise on the continent?
Okay, so what I'm talking about is that already before or prior to Corona, a lot of people are struggling health-wise, and many people are dying already from infections, from tuberculosis, from cancer, from diabetes, from lifestyle issues, but also from not having the proper food to eat, not having the ability to establish a healthy sense of life. So meaning that we cannot not now say, now we need to take health serious, now we need to protect ourselves. We have needed to do that for a long time. So this kind of, especially seen from our point, it falls into a category that already was a worry. To us, it seems like the world around us doesn't really care, because they might not be as harshly affected by the same symptoms and the same issues that we have been, but it must be an issue to us. So I think we need to see Corona in a much bigger spectrum. We cannot just isolate it and see it alone. I understand that we need to look at it also specifically, because we are being told that it's different, that it has a different way of moving. We can't really understand it yet. We don't know what it takes to contain it. And if that's true, yes, of course, we need to look at that as well. But I think we need to look at the broader aspect. We are a continent where death seems to be very normal, and the world goes about its business even if we die a lot.
Lockdown online with Ninja X in conversation with Baba Buntu. Baba Buntu, now let's just get into a little bit of your other works so that my viewer can benefit further outside of this conversation about the lockdown and Corona. If they want to follow your work, I'm particularly interested in Shabaga, Men of Africa. Tell me about this.
Okay, so as a company that is an African-centered place of practice, because I want to emphasize the practice. This is not just theories. And even when I say we need to read books, it's not just to sound clever and speak fancy English or anything like that. It's to be able to craft new and great solutions from our sources and for our purpose. So Shabaka is a program that we started in 2010. It's a platform for African men to have dialogues, to have conversations, and to actually peer educate each other. So instead of bringing in an expert that's going to tell men what to do and what's their problem and what's the solution, we create spaces where men can have dialogues. And what is important about that is that a lot of African men think that I may be the only one who has a problem with depression, with communicating with my wife, with a child that doesn't speak to me, with disrespect, with not finding myself, not understanding who I am. But when men come together in groups, they realize that, wow, so many others are having exactly the same or even worse or more distinct problems than the ones that I have. And in that, the first step towards healing is to admit that you have a problem. And many of us as African men, we have been told a script that we must just keep it in, we must just bottle it up, we must never break, we must never fall, we must never have weakness. So we live up to these impossible expectations of always being men who can make it. And then actually what that becomes is an experience of faking it. So when we come into relationships, when we come into meetings, when we stand before this world that seems to not even want to have anything to do with us, we do a lot of posturing. We do a lot of intimidation. With our sisters, we need them to be lower than us and be fearful of us and not think they can even have conversations with us. Because the real problem is that we are scared and vulnerable and weak and we don't know how to voice it. So it's about creating spaces where men can talk openly and find strength. And don't think about talking as something like people are saying, oh, I'm so weak, I can't do anything, I'm so sorry for myself. It's not about that. It's actually a power experience of finally being able to tell your truth and having other men, and this is very important. As men, we also need validation from each other, because sometimes we have this competitiveness amongst each other, and we start to eye each other, we start to think who's more powerful, who's on top of the other one. But now we come together on one level. And we don't really care if you're a business owner with 50 businesses or if you are unemployed for the last 50 years. You have something to bring to the table, and we want to hear your voice. And let me also say that this platform of Shabaka Men of Africa, it consists next to another platform which is called Kandaka, which is the program that my wife, Mama Tabucho, is coordinating, which is for the sisters. And it's important to say this, that when we have two separate platforms, one for women, one for men, it's not because we believe in gender separation. But we realize that at the root of what we struggle with as an African family is that we don't even know how to relate. We don't even know how to come into the same space as men and women and have useful conversation just before we even get into anything else, let alone if now me and a sister, now we have a love interest, we want to take it to another level, we want to actually form a union, we want to actually have children together, we want to set up a family. So by the time we actually have our first child, we have never really dealt with our confusion, our immaturity, and our vulnerability. So our point is that brothers need a space where they can acknowledge, understand, and start changing some of the things that are problematic in our exercise of African manhood. And similarly for women, also women come to many relationships with a lot of burdens, with a lot of baggage, with a lot of open wounds, and kind of without even saying it, hope that the next partner or lover or husband is going to take care of this or help to heal it. And we can't really heal each other if we don't know how to heal ourselves. So it's really about creating a platform to eventually heal the African family. So we also do work with families and parents. We also do school kind of settings for children. And the whole point, and this is at the root of what Ebukosini Solution does, we want to revive the African family. We think that our greatest power platform sits within the family. This is your first place of learning confidence, learning respect, learning your knowledge, learning who you are and where you are from. And since we struggle a lot in the family space, we need to especially work with young people so that they can go forward and form stronger families, give birth to and raise stronger children, so that we can also find the solutions we need, because it doesn't look like the world is going to be less challenging for quite some time.
Baba Buntu, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with me here on Lockdown Online with Ninja X. If my viewers want to follow you, where do they find you on social media?
They can use Baba Buntu or Dr. Baba Buntu on most social media platforms, and they can also write us an email. We engage, and especially now with this time when we can't really see each other physically, but already before this, we engage with a lot of people around the country and around the African world through electronic media. So people can write an email to buntu@ebukosinisolutions.co.za. That's buntu@ebukosinisolutions.co.za.
Baba Buntu, thank you so much for awesome work you're doing. And thank you so much for taking time this morning to chat to me on day 6 of the lockdown on Lockdown Online with Ninja X. I appreciate it so much. Let me just stop this quickly, and then we can chat. Stop.